necessary evil, so to speak. I think this can get higher.
It does seem a lot of the flights are still booked though, too.
Oops, that might not work.
Still disappear.
You're shrinking. I want to come up in the world instead of down in the world. There. Short legs.
I was telling Tom and Arthur yesterday, went on to book a flight from to North Carolina, coming back on the Friday or Saturday of Daffodil, and I couldn't believe the fares. So I went on and I looked at the fares for Cape Air just to Boston, or from Boston, and on Friday and Saturday, the cheapest fare is $200 one way, and the most expensive is $299 one way.
That's crazy.
And they don't, that's their non-refundable fare. They don't even offer a refundable fare.
Oh, really?
Well, welcome to the free enterprise system.
Really? They're the only game in town.
On the opposite of that, I was looking at JetBlue starting their first weekend to DCA, and if you do the opposite of what's coming here, you leave here on Friday and come back on Sunday, round trip, 120, 119.
Yeah.
To DC?
Crazy.
I just checked
Wow.
Travelocity and compare them to US Air, and it's twice the price on US Air.
I'm surprised it's not more than twice the price.
JetBlue is starting New York May 7th. They're coming in a week early.
Yeah, 'cause this wasn't until June 19th, I think.
Yeah.
We'd have to check
I
out
wish they had a
Capital.
morning flight out of here.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
don't make
yeah.
it easy to leave
Good
in
air.
Nantucket. They make it easier to get here.
We have a house there. You can stay there. It's right by the Capitol.
Going around in the Caribbean. It's not exactly designed for a business traveler.
No.
All right, well, we have got a huge crowd here.
Interest is,
Do you think we need to get more seats?
Crazy.
Bring some chairs up front? or
I know now that Bobby doesn't come. We have no public.
No seats. All right, we'll give 30 seconds notice.
Now, Dan, I voted for you for the Harbor Commission since no one was running. I just hope you're prepared to undertake those duties.
Want to win with one vote, thanks.
You might.
No, because I voted for somebody that said, well, there'll be a runoff. Oh, Lord. A horrible thought.
Get prepared for that.
Somebody said he was going to write my name in for one of the other offices. I said, it's fine, but don't tell anybody.
You don't have to be sworn in either. I mean, you could refuse to be sworn in.
All right. I will call to order the meeting of the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission for Tuesday, April 14, 2015. Are there any comments on the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. What I'd like to do is batch the minutes into executive session and regular. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sets of executive session minutes. These were released in executive session, ready to go. So may I have a motion to approve those, approve the release of those?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And 3 sets of minutes for the regular meetings of February 24th, March 10th, and April 6th to 8th, the concurrent meeting with town meeting. There's one correction on those minutes, which everybody is aware of already. Are there any other comments or corrections?
No.
Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of 2:24, 3:10, and 4:6 to 4:8.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're gonna have a public hearing on
We're going to do the warrant.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2 warrants. March 25th and April 8th. Is there a motion to approve those or to ratify those?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I think I will, with your indulgence, since there's nobody here, well, maybe I should read it anyway for the benefit of the audience. What do you think? I have a few remarks prepared.
You've put the work in.
Mr. Rafter put the work in. All right, I'll go ahead and read this. This is the opening statement for the public hearing on rates and charges. As you may recall, the airport had some very significant financial challenges in the recent past, requiring the town to subsidize the operation. While significant facility improvements have been made, these came with a cost. During the period from 2012 to 2014, the subsidy from the town reached a total of over $4.6 million. The town is expecting this amount to be repaid over a period of time. Significant changes have been made to the operation in an effort to address the situation. While progress has been made, the airport continues to face challenges in achieving self-sustainability. The airport reviews its rates and charges annually, and with the overall financial picture in mind, the airport manager and his team have developed the proposed changes to take effect May 1, 2015. It should be noted that the fees have been not changed in the past 5 to 9 years, and some have not been modified since 1999. The rates are essentially divided into two basic categories: aeronautical, which includes airline, air charter, air taxi, general aviation, aviation, related land leases, and other related fees; and non-aeronautical, which include general retail, non-aviation related land leases, ground transportation, advertising, and other services. In the aeronautical fee portion, changes have been made to the FBO building use charge, freight and ramp fees, as well as equipment storage, and clarification has been provided on other items. Of the non-aeronautical charges, in addition to clarifying various items, changes have been made to the vehicle parking rates. We'll address that in a moment. The taxi access rate, ramp access charges, and advertising rates. Copies of the proposed changes are available in the back of the room. The audience will be given an opportunity to speak to their specific concerns. I think I'll skip that because there is no audience. At the conclusion of your comments, the commission members will be asked if they have any questions. After closing the public hearing, the commission will then deliberate and take such action as it deems appropriate. Thank you in advance for your participation. I will open the public hearing on the rates and charges. Are there any comments? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing on the rates and charges. Is there any further discussion by the commission? Mr. Rafter, do you want to address the parking
Yeah, I
fees?
just wanted to note that the parking as initially proposed for a change has been removed. The only thing we're asking for change is the lost token fee from $10 to $20. The challenge we had with developing an implementation of the proposed structure was something we just couldn't overcome and do in a timely manner, so we still need more work and some upgrades to our system in order to be able to accomplish that.
And just one correction from what I read before, these are to be effective May 15th, are they not?
Yes, that's
2015.
correct.
Thank you. Mr. Gasparo, did you have a comment?
I have two comments. I would just like to thank the staff and for all the work that they put into this, and I think that this is a long time coming and is good, serves the airport well. The one question that I had was in the very last page under other services for de-icing, where it lists check with FBO. I'm just wondering if you could maybe just, I'm not against, just expand on that a little bit.
That's a very good question. We had some discussion on this, and the FBO superintendent suggested that we put that language in because of the volatility of the price. It's kind of like when you buy a lobster, it's market priced. It fluctuates significantly, the actual cost of the de-icing fluid. So that's why we put a note in there, check with the FBO.
Maybe we should call it market price and then check with FBO.
We can do that.
Would that be?
Yeah, I think that would be a good amendment.
Any other comments or questions? I will entertain a motion to adopt the proposed changes as outlined in the schedule to the Nantucket Airport's rates and charges.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the
Mr.
motion.
Gasparo, thank you.
Dan, I'm sorry, we may just want for the record to note that we did receive one written set of comments, but I believe they're moot because it was primarily for the parking.
All right. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry to interrupt.
And that's the only written comment we've gotten.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, we did have some questions from Delta Airlines, but we've addressed those also.
They didn't send in any formal comment. All right. We have a motion. Are there any further comments?
Oh, I was just curious about the literature racks. $263. Why didn't you just go for $265?
I don't know, I saw that this afternoon too, and I was wondering, do you remember what that
It
was?
was the percent.
It was just a percentage
I
increase.
tried to do the same percent increase, and
Yeah.
that's what it ended up being.
Does it offend you?
No. Everybody would be glad to save $2, I'm sure.
All right, let's go with it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you all. And again, Tom, thank you to your work group,
Yes.
as well as yourself and Janine and May and everybody else who was
A
involved.
lot of staff work went into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recognize that.
All right. Next, we have public comment. Is there any public comment? Hearing none. We move on to pending leases and contracts. We actually have 3 of the enumerated list. Do you want to run through them quickly, Mr. Rafter? please?
Yeah, the 3 that are ready to go this evening that the vendors have returned signed is the Baines & Jones contract for $4,200. That's for supply of parts for broken street lamps that were damaged during some of the storms. The contract with Cobo Construction for $1,146, and that was for troubleshooting and repair of a taxiway, and that was an emergency procurement. Additionally, a contract with Franklin Paint for $34,999 for airfield painting supplies.
I make a motion to approve those 3 contracts.
Second?
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are you all here for the public hearing? Okay. We've had it already. We've had it. If you want to make a comment, you're welcome to. We just went by public comment, but if you want to make a comment,
Well, I guess since we're late, I'm sorry. But
would you come to the microphone and identify yourself, please?
Walter Flaherty, I'm sorry for being late. You said you had the public comments or the public meeting
We
already?
had the public hearing already
About the-
on the rates and charges.
And you came to a decision already?
We have done that, yes. But if you have a comment, we'd welcome it.
What decision did you come to?
To pass the schedule as proposed.
Parking and taxi?
No, parking is not. Parking was left out because of some technical issues.
But
It will
you're
come up again.
You're raising the fees on the taxis
Yes,
from $300 a year to $400?
that's correct.
And can I ask what the taxi drivers are getting for the raise in the fares? What services are being provided, if any?
Do you want to address that?
In addition to being able to access the airport, they have a dedicated lane, which we plow the snow on. We provide all the repairs to as well.
If I might
Do you
add,
provide a driveway for the?
What- you
We
know,
provide a dedicated lane for the taxi cabs to pick up their patrons,
And actually, we provide more than that because we also provide a spot for them to drop them
for
off.
drop-off, yeah.
Do you provide that for the general public also?
We're not a
Not a
dedicated
dedicated,
lane.
no.
No.
Okay, thank you.
if I may, Mr. Flaherty, just one comment. It had been since 1999 as well, since that had changed. Just, I don't want to go to.
I understand it's been a long time, but I'd like to know what we're getting for the services that we're being charged
Access to
for.
175,000 employments a year. Airport access is in its own a right, if you will, or privilege, actually, rather.
I understand there's a privilege, but I'm just asking how you broke down from 300 to 400.
Well, we actually, if I may, we
Please.
benchmarked it against some other airports, and quite frankly, against Martha's Vineyard, we're extremely low. And we're right in line with Barnstable, just about.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, pending matters, FUD site status.
A lot of progress has been made in that area, and I would like to thank our maintenance crew. They're quite, how should I say this, creative. The Wiesentainer operation has been totally relocated. Mr. Dutra's operation is about 75 to 80% relocated, and we're working out the final details of the amendments. We have some drafts from legal. I've met with both companies. It's going to be filling in some blanks now, and that should be completed by the end of this week, hopefully, so that by next meeting you'll have the amendments ready for your signature. And this Friday we're scheduled to begin, the maintenance crew will be relocating some of the dirt piles that are there that must be overseen by a licensed site professional, which will be the Weston Company. So that is moving along very well. Any questions on that, or do you want me to move on to the next?
Keep going.
The general fund repayment, we had a meeting scheduled last week, but it was postponed with the finance director, so I have nothing new to report on that. Shall I move on to master plan?
Go ahead. Thank you.
We had a meeting last week with the FAA and DOT, and what was relayed to us was that the high priority for FAA in the upcoming years will be what's known as geometry, and it is essentially a new advisory circular that was issued. The predominant impact to us is a relocation or staggering of certain stub taxiways so that they're not immediately accessible and perpendicular to the runway. It will create a staggered approach to the runway to minimize on incursions. So that change has been made to the airport layout plan and will be made to the master plan as well. I also met with Dan and Arthur and received some additional comments on the airport layout plan. I've relayed those to the consultant, and they will be adding them as well. One is a noise wall, the entire length of the south apron, and the other is designating out in the bunker area the triangular piece that is currently labeled as non-aeronautical to put in there also potential future solar site. With that, we're going to be updating our airport capital improvement plan as well, and we'll have a copy of that for the next meeting. So I'd like to, this is the final say of change. I don't want to say final say, but we're sending it through the process now with FAA and state. So I'd like to ask for concurrence or approval of the airport layout plan, unless there are other changes.
The copy we have doesn't have the changes in the stub taxis. Oh, it does have the changes in the stub taxiways. I see they're relocated, and the old ones are in orange, and the new
Yes.
ones are in gray. Okay.
They're offset. Yep.
It's just going to take longer to cross over.
Well, I think that's the intent. So it's minimizing, like I say, runway incursions. So
Are
it's
they
a
going to
national
make
priority.
Logan do that too?
It's national, everybody. Anytime you have to do a project in that area, you're going to have to conform with the new geometry requirements. And these must be done before we can be considered for any discretionary funding.
Runway incursions have been an FAA program for a number of years, and that I think is the most often repeated dangerous thing to happen at any airport. So I think
Prior to this, it was runway safety areas. They were putting all the effort and funding in the runway safety areas. Now they're doing it in the geometry.
So we have to use our allocation for this?
Before we can be considered for discretionary funds, you must address all the top safety priorities that the FAA has. We, in the CIP, will be putting in for discretionary to accomplish this and some other paving and safety area items that we have.
Okay.
What's the change with the noise wall on the south apron?
Go ahead, Mr. Gasparo.
We had talked at the last meeting about where they had shown hangars, and then to have it as some sort of a noise mitigation feature. And my thinking was that that would go the whole way and not just be down where just the smallest of the planes are.
And this shows as a berm.
It would extend
Okay.
Right,
to
and
the
so,
entire length here.
you know, you can see if you look how wide, especially sections A, B, and C are compared to even what's existing. The thinking was thinking back to the meetings we've had with the Surfside Area Association, that we could show as a planning document that
We're trying to.
Right,
mitigate.
that while there's expansion that's proposed, there's also mitigation that's being contemplated. And that would go along, something along there. So we would go, yes, there would be expansion, but yes, there would also be mitigation.
And I think our rationale in talking about it yesterday was that the berm takes up too much ramp space. And anything's expensive. Those walls are expensive, but at least they're,
Because I recall that from Jacob, saying that doing some sort of wall would be millions of dollars, like it was.
well, we heard a number that was, significant, but we're not doing miles as is done along a highway. We're doing a few, maybe 1,000 feet or
Tops.
or
If I
1,500
may,
feet.
Dan, too, in my discussion with the consultant, they said it's easy enough to put on the airport layout plan. In the actual master plan document, they're going to have to look at the priority list and costs and stagger it out where it fits so that will now have an impact on financial feasibility, but it'll all be addressed. It's just a matter of, as Arthur says, if it's not on the plan, you don't do it, kind of. If it's on the plan, we can at least do it when it's financially viable. So,
My thinking was also that there's no reason that couldn't be phased the same as the expansion. In other words, you would only have to install A when you do A, B when you do B, sort of a thing. And as well, when you get into the E&F process, part of that environmental process is going to have noise and mitigation, and so that gives us some response as that part already on the plan.
Okay.
So I think it would be both. It would help, I think, the permitting, and then it would also be responsive when you start to get comments from the neighbors to show that we're trying to do something. That was my thinking.
Right, and so is it, will we say like a noise wall, or should we say proposed, noise mitigation
Feature,
Feature.
even
Structure,
Yeah.
structure or something.
structure?
yeah, something along those lines to be determined. Design, subject to design, and
I would even say possible.
I think as long as it's on the
Yeah.
plan, once you go to accomplish it, the details, they'll be flexible enough, as long as
That's what
it's
I was
not
thinking.
changing the entire complex of it.
Thank you.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
Tom, when would you expect that we would have a revised plan from Jacobs? And is this something that we would have a final plan at the next meeting to approve, or you'd be looking for approval?
I would like to have approval tonight, subject to the changes, because this is starting to go through the process now with the state and the FAA. And even with that, I think they said they couldn't get back to us until July with the final, because it has to go through all divisions of FAA.
I think we should approve it contingent on the addition of those two
Right.
things.
I'm okay with that, as long as we're sure the feature is going to run,
The entire length.
basically from the ARF to the E.
Yeah, it's that little jog just past the ARF.
Yep.
Has the FAA seen it?
Yes,
Okay.
they've seen this.
Okay.
They've seen this version, and we'll be updating it based on the other comments. And again, actually, they saw a prior version, and based on their comments, the taxiways were relocated, so this has been forwarded to them to address their concerns.
And just for discussion purposes, I think the other change from the last version we saw have to do with the housing and the zoning out next to the Delta fields. From what
Well,
we discussed at the last meeting, I don't think those were on there. I mean, they're on there now.
They're on there
right.
now,
Just
yes.
for,
Has the FAA seen that?
Yes.
Seen the housing?
Yes,
Okay.
that was on the version they saw. Again, when I say the FAA, it was, I think Cliff Vasarka was the only one that was at the meeting. So it will now go through the process similar to like a 7460, where it will go to all the divisions.
Okay. And what division is he? Is he with
He's-
Lisa Lesperance?
He's airports, engineering, yeah.
Okay.
Are there any questions, further questions, comments? Will this be designated as possible mitigation for the solar? Do we need to do
That
that?
site will just simply say possible future solar site or something like that.
I'm talking about this one,
The
not
other-
this
The
one.
strip.
I'm talking about the strip.
No,
Identify mitigation land.
I don't know that it's the type of mitigation, and I don't know that we want to call out potential mitigation sites because I think you want flexibility wherever there's going to be,
Okay.
whether it's a plant or a moth or, whatever your habitat qualifications are.
All right. If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve the airport layout plan submission as presented to us with two additions, one being the notation about this parcel to the southeast being the site of a possible solar field, and the second being with respect to the matter we've discussed of the noise mitigation structure along the south ramp, starting from the ARF building, running out to the end of parcel E, or whatever we call it. Is parcel E the right word?
Taxiway.
No, it's not taxiway.
It's not a taxiway, but it's
Ramp section E, let's say ramp
ramp
section.
section.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. Good job, Tom.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we are moving on to the ATM recap.
As many of you already know, the annual town meeting went 3 nights, and our articles were all passed that had to do with finance. It included our operating budget, our capital budget, and our transfers, as well as the fuel revolver. Had 2. It had the home rule petition, as well as just reauthorization of the fuel revolver. So the other item in your packet is the third quarter financial report, which I'll be presenting to the Board of Selectmen, I believe, in 2 weeks. Things are looking better, but we're also still behind the 8 ball slightly. The way this is, the way the chart reads, it has all of the fuel in it, and then at the bottom, it breaks out essentially what I consider to be remaining in the fuel revolver. Essentially, it's unallocated. If you look at the bottom right, over in the right-hand column in the bottom, has the breakdown of the fuel revolver, and you'll see it's about $1,457,000 that is unallocated portion of our gross profits. So that's currently still within the fuel revolver. As we continue through the fiscal year, that number will shrink, and our revenue into the operating will grow slightly. So last year, for the fourth quarter, Dave, I believe you said we had 23 loads of fuel delivered. So, we're anticipating close to the same. And again, as I say, one thing I do want to note is under the expenses, the comparison from this year to last year, there's $200 and some thousand that is not in there this year that was in last year's, and we're checking with the finance department. I don't know when they actually book it. Typically, it's at the end of the year, but they're showing that it was in the third quarter for last year. So just so everybody's
Is that the pension and so forth?
No, that's
Indirect costs.
indirect costs are purchasing, a number of other services,
Right.
payroll, things like that they provide to us. So we're still, we're ahead of last year, but we are still not, if you will, fully sustainable at this point in time. We're still relying on retained earnings.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Carbon neutral. Why don't you kick that off, Mr. Rafter?
We had a meeting with the Honeywell folks to review various financing alternatives for the overall carbon neutral program. And much of the discussion was focused around solar, as that is the primary driver for getting us to a carbon neutral state. However, there are still a lot of unanswered questions and a number of concerns with regard to the solar, specifically as it relates to mitigation, actual design, and some of the other details. So what I recommended at that meeting was a follow-up subcommittee meeting, which NOAA is in the process of scheduling, to go through some of the details relating specifically to the carbon neutral program as well as the solar, and whether we end up breaking that in two pieces or however we're going to address that. But I think there's still some hurdles that we need to cross before we can proceed with the overall program. Also, Brian Turbot has the presentation and the numbers, and he is coordinating and asking bond counsel from the town to review that, to check and verify some of it and get their feedback on what was proposed as well. So as soon as I have that, I will let you know. But I believe Noah was looking at Thursday for a meeting, possibly, with the subcommittee, and I don't know if that was confirmed or not.
I don't think that'll work now for posting reasons.
Oh,
unless-
okay.
if you
Yeah,
didn't post it
timing.
today, so it'll have to be next week.
Okay.
I can do that anytime.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see what Noah comes
We'll
up
get
with.
that scheduled.
All right. With everyone's indulgence, I'd like to go back to the town meeting recap and the layout plan in the context of that piece of land up on Dobedier Farm Road that has been rezoned from Lug 3 to R5. This is an opportunity for us with respect to housing. And we talked about having the planning subcommittee get together and talk about this, discuss various options, both in terms of the layout, in terms of the process, to avoid as much of the cost being borne by the airport as possible. Hopefully, none of the cost has to be borne by the airport, but we'll have to see. And coming up with a plan that we can take to the FAA and talk to them about, to see how they're going to react to the concept. And we talked about something with maybe 2 standalone houses, 2 duplexes, and some kind of apartment dormitory for summer seasonal employees. So a lot more work needs to be done on it. But we will undertake that and see where we come out.
And you're talking about the, specifically the place, the relocation of Thompson House?
Well,
that
that's what it's
parcel? Is
labeled
that-
currently, yeah. And
Dan, it was changed to Lug 5 and CN, I believe, too. There are 2 different designations there.
Lug 5 and what, sir?
I believe it's CN, is that?
I think the 2 pieces were changed to 2 different ones, apparently.
Yeah, half of it, I think, was
to CN and half of it was to R5.
R5, that's right.
And I think an important distinction there would be that the CN uses would allow some sort of apartments where the straight R5 wouldn't. So we may have to, as a committee, look at trying to come up with sort of a layout that, that we could come back with to the whole commission, try to figure out what do we do there and how.
Mhm.
What do we need? I think is the bigger discussion. We don't want to build too much. How do
Well,
we
I-
use that
And
land?
I think
I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know it'd be possible to build too much right now.
Yeah, our biggest hurdle is probably going to be FAA,
Right.
because, yeah.
That's why we think we ought to have a plan, rather than just saying, all right, here we have this rezoning now, is it okay if we use it? come up with a specific plan for the.
'Cause, yeah, I reread that section today on, it's, housing is incompatible land use. Just
understand.
about every which way you can figure
But
it.
that's, I mean, how far away does it have to be?
It doesn't matter. It's airport property. It doesn't matter if it's in Nantucket. It doesn't have to be contiguous or,
Yeah.
you know,
That's the
close to the
FAA's
runway.
statute? Thank you.
Just to give you an update on some of the housing challenges, we have at least 2 employees right now that are facing critical need for housing, maybe losing one imminently. Full-time, year-round, excellent employee. And the housing for the seasonal, the Thompson House is full, and people are on waiting lists for that for seasonal. So
And those are airport employees? sir?
yes, they're specific, our airport. That
That's
doesn't
right.
even include, we have horror stories from Control Tower. I don't know if they ever resolved their issues, but they had 2 supervisors coming in that were looking and had absolutely no place to live. It's critical, and I'm also preparing a white paper explaining some of this to try to explain the dire situation, and I understand the FAA's, points and concerns, but we are a little unique, and, I had an official tell me from another state department that they didn't want to give Nantucket something and have somebody come in and say, well, we want the Nantucket deal, and I wish I had the wit to come back with, well, feel free to give them the Nantucket deal if they're located 30 miles out to sea, But there are some very unique challenges here, and we're almost at a crisis mode. I just heard today that a number of employees that were processed for JetBlue, or not JetBlue, rather Rectrix to handle JetBlue, went through training, went through all their processing of paperwork and ID, and they dropped out, and I'm pretty sure that's because of housing. Cape Air, I know, has had a few employees that had to leave because they don't have they don't have housing. Even the ones that can try to find a place to hang their hat, their belongings are stored over in Hyannis because there's not even enough storage on island and the expense of it. So these are just stories and actual people relating things directly to me. So I think we need to plead our case somehow, even if, we have to at least put up a good fight and see what we can do.
Right.
Well,
Or
there are
go to
two-
them and see what,
Yeah, see
Get a
what-
waiver. In
what they
essence.
suggest, I guess,
Yeah.
an approach might be.
That's why I was thinking maybe we don't want to go too much. And it's a trade that you do have one house that you're getting rid of from near the runway in order, sweeten it for them. In other words, we don't want to be.
Well, I hope, I mean, I know they have rules and they have rules for reasons, but I hope that there's enough flexibility there that they can understand, as Mr. Rafter
It's
says.
a decision made in Washington,
Mm-hmm.
the Airports Division in Washington. So, so our local New England people might be able to guide us with
Exactly.
the approach to
Right.
getting it approved in Washington.
Well, even if you could get the FAA's approval, I mean, it costs a vast sum of money to build anything.
Well, that's right.
Yeah,
There's,
that's a whole
the
nother-
FAA
that's a
is
bigger
the
problem.
first hurdle.
Yeah,
Right, right.
Yeah, and then we still have.
Then, yeah.
trying to build a dormitory for 20 temporary employees. I
No,
mean,
it wouldn't be for 20, but
or-
anyway, yeah, but there are challenges.
yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry we didn't bring that up before, but it's something we'll be addressing through the planning subcommittee.
Actually, that's why I was asking if FAA had seen this, because it's clear that we're planning on
Yeah.
doing so.
Something there, yeah.
Right. I should have, I sort of thought of that when you said it, but didn't follow up with it. But anyway, it's all out there now. Okay. Anything else in the carbon neutral program? I think we're,
I had one sort of thought following up on the meeting as I'm running all that through my mind and the numbers they gave us and the time frame, where they basically told us in order to qualify for the SREX, the switch has to be on by end of calendar year 2016. And it just, that sure does seem like quite a stretch. And then when I just heard this week that Hyannis's installation still actually hasn't been turned on, and that was came as a shock to me. And I look at how long that's actually been sitting there, at least apparently. I don't know all the details.
We're going to try to find them out.
So that's just something else. But I was wondering, if we're going to be, while we're working with our consultant, what would the numbers look like without the SRACs? I mean, you know, if we're still going to go through this and we're looking at it and we say, okay, well, the time constraint is something that's not realistic, but we still would want to explore the solar. You know, I couldn't quite just figure it out looking at the numbers myself. There's
Yeah,
awful lot there.
what I would
We can
love to
have
have them do is just break out the solar and the options under the solar, including Mr. Kasparov's option, because as you say, many of the others are very small and risky and maybe not worth spending another $3 million on beyond.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the complexity of the financial arrangement. I doubt that anybody in the room could have given it back to Honeywell exactly as they gave it to us. It was a highly sophisticated program, and I think difficult to understand
Maybe
completely.
intended to obfuscate the.
Well, and the other thing is that this is Honeywell's proposal. Obviously, they're the only person in the room. They're going to make a good profit installing it on these terms. We haven't heard from anybody else. There's no competition. There's nobody else is coming in here and saying, well, we'll build the solar
It's already been
field for something else.
right?
Well, I mean, in essence, it has, because they competed for the
So
The
they've got
carbon
the right
neutral.
to move forward with this program.
And I think that's one of the discussions we want to have in the subcommittee is the options there. I believe, and we'd have to check with legal, that through procurement, they have already gone through the process of being selected. If we choose not to go with them, then we would have to begin the procurement process again, which would add additional time.
That is an unlikely prospect. I was also highly impressed with the fact that this doesn't make any economic sense on its own. It only makes economic sense if on the financing side we get government help, including the IRS, and on the sales side, once it's installed, it doesn't make any sense unless you get these SRACs, the state program, which we understand is going to terminate at the end of 2016 anyway. It sounds to me like this is a duck that will not fly. That was my impression of it. And I don't know how much longer we want to continue with this. We're spending time. and
Well, I
resources
think
on this.
one of the things that motivates me is the possibility that there's a substantial offset of the power produced by making it available to the town for the wastewater treatment plant as well. And we've got to see how that plays out on a number of issues. One, in terms of financially. Second, in terms of mitigation. And probably 3 and 4 as well. But I think we've got to do our homework on it.
I'm delighted to follow through. It just seems to me a pretty big barrier here. And do we have anybody in the town, the water treatment plant, which would benefit from this, I guess? Who comments on that?
They're the biggest. Well, I mean, the person we really have to rely on is George Aronson, who's the town's energy consultant. And I think he's...
Is he tied into this program, understands it?
He's
very much so.
Very
Okay,
smart
okay.
with this, yeah.
A follow-up to that, perhaps we should see if he'd be willing to attend the subcommittee
Yeah, I
meeting.
was just thinking the same
I
thing.
think he should. I thought we discussed that already.
Yeah,
But
but-
he should.
Yeah, I think that could be really helpful.
Yeah.
Or at least his, what's her name, Lauren?
Lauren, but if we have George,
George
I
is
think-
very knowledgeable in this.
that probably would end up being both of them, I
Right.
suggest, which would be great. They're
All right. GA building, anything to report?
As long as Janine doesn't hit me here. Janine did a lot of work in calculating what we believe was owed to the surety and construction company to close out this project. And just as she finalized that, they submitted another pay requisition. You may recall they submitted a draft final pay requisition. Well, this was not the final pay requisition, so we don't know if this was a draft final or what.
The one we just got?
Yes. In any case, Janine met with Bill McGuire from the Nantucket Architecture Group and went through all of the items and was clarifying that, and we'll now go back to legal. although they submitted a pay requisition, it looks like they still owe us money, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Okay, so we may owe them some money. But hopefully we can turn this payment around and turn it into,
Is this basically the pay rec for the punch list completion?
I,
Can you tell?
no, there was a tail end of some work that they had
It's very
done there.
confusing.
In any case, we're still trying to pressure and get to the final stage here and force that final pay requisition so that the clock starts to tick on all the other requirements, specifically liquidated damages and that type of thing, so.
So they sent another draft.
Another interim final, yes.
Interim and final do not work together in the same sentence. As a matter of point of English.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Buscarin.
No charge.
In any case, we're still pursuing that, working with legal and getting numbers together and trying to draft something back to them that.
I have one question,
along.
Ms. Torres. Was it worth it?
Yes.
Good. All right, Mr. Rafter, the manager's report, please.
Just before I begin, just a note, I sent out an email earlier. Chris Willenborg has announced that he'll be leaving Mass DOT as Director of Division of Aeronautics. I think it's a tremendous loss for ourselves and the entire state. He's a tremendous supporter of airports. He's done a great job developing a system or a department and implementing a lot of things. They're tremendous support to us and many other airports. So I wish him well, and unfortunate for us that he's leaving. On our projects, the security project, the ramp light on the terminal that was supposed to be in by tomorrow, actually was originally supposed to be in by last October, is now about another month delayed because of some misinformation that was not on a drawing that they have to add an access panel. Additionally, there's some outstanding questions
Well, we've known about that for some time,
about,
the lack of the access panel.
well, maybe a month we knew about it.
Okay.
How the resolution was going to take place was just recently determined. So there are also still a number of questions outstanding on the interactive training, and I got an email today from Steve Fletcher of Jacobs, who indicated that Kobo is checking with their sub to hopefully get some responses, but we haven't seen any progress on that either. The ramp reconstruction is going to be advertised this week. That is on the north ramp, north of the baggage claim area, and bids will be doing later this month. The website is up and running. If you haven't been there, you might want to check it out. It's still a work in progress, but it's a tremendous improvement over what we had. The air traffic control tower, the filed sub-bids are due tomorrow, and general contractor bids are due on the 29th. On the geothermal recommissioning, we have essentially scrapped that project. If you recall my last report, I indicated that we were transferring it from NOAA to maintenance. Maintenance got a hold of some documents, read through it, looked at it, and said, why are we doing this? Because you're just paying for a study, and the implementation is going to cost you additional money. We can go right to implementation with this new contractor that we've been using. So they're saving money, time, and effort. And we were referred a contractor from the school for HVAC, and they've been doing tremendous things with our staff and helping them and tweaking the.
Are they the ones who are working on the geothermal too?
Yes. Yep. So the maintenance department, indicated that there was no need for this. We can actually go right to implementation, and that's what they're working on. So that's, I think, a very good recommendation and good improvement. The phone system, Janine has made tremendous headway with that, and we should have a contract ready for you for the next meeting. And I can't wait because our phone system is.
Is this a cloud-based phone system?
It's a cloud-based
What's the name of it?
voice over IP, which is
Nortel Sky.
Okay, thank you.
and
So we don't have any equipment on premises?
Not yet.
not yet.
No, I mean, we won't have any server or anything like that for it, which is,
Just the
Just the-
desktop
right.
units and things. On the RFP side of the house, April 29th is going to be a big day. We have bids due for the air traffic control tower general contractors, the north ramp, and the snow blower, all due in the same day. Janine's also working on contracts for fence repairs that were damaged in the storm, and the vestibule damage that was also done when the sprinkler system froze. We have replaced that with a dry system, though, to hopefully prevent that in the future. Also working on a bid for the tug, and we're gathering pricing on our ARF training. The contract for that is up shortly, and working on developing a advertising RFP. But in the interim, May has done some tremendous work in soliciting potential people that may want to do some advertising, and she's put a few into the terminal. You'll see a nice display as you get to the screening area. It looks very well done, and kind of sets the bar, I think. We want to try to hopefully upgrade some of the other into making it look as nice as that, but generating some additional revenue for us as well. The clock in the FBO was replaced with a piece of work that is somewhat advertising as well, and we're getting some revenue from that, but also the vendor gets to, display his wares. So May's making some very good headway in getting us some money there, but we're going to work on an overall advertising display, or RFP.
And the new windows looks great.
It does. It really looks
improves
nice.
Have you all seen the?
What is it?
It's the first window by the screening checkpoint. You'll see it really looks different from the others. Also, we have some folks that are interested in possibly some additional static display of aircraft and some other maybe unique advertising opportunities. We're considering possibly some advertising on our shuttle buses to get the word out, and some high value, high visibility. So thank you, May. I think she's here.
Thank you.
On the operations side of the house, the Wine Festival, we have approved their application, subject to them paying and receiving also the other town permits. They've provided us with all of the detailed information, and we've asked for quite a bit of detail, and they've provided us the information. In your packet, you have a request from Cape Air to plant a tree, and I believe that's in recognition of Earth Day. They're coordinating with NOAA on types of tree and location and things. Do we need approval for that?
I think we should have it accepted, yes.
I think we have to accept it as a gift.
Oh, okay.
Make a motion to accept the gift of a tree from
I
Cape
think
Air.
it's actually 2 trees.
No, second.
Isn't it 2 trees?
2 trees.
Two trees.
Oh, one. I didn't know they're doing both.
I think it's just 2 locations, right?
Well, that's 2
Okay.
trees, isn't it?
I thought it was 2 trees, one here and one
Yeah, we weren't
someplace
sure
else.
we could have the one area ready for that time frame.
Well, we'll accept the 2, and if we get one,
This is
Is
the
it-
tree.
Is there a second?
I second it, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And you'll send an appropriate note to Cape Air when the gift is received, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
Also, a reminder, the Chamber of Commerce Business After Hours will be held in the FBO on May 7th from 5:30 to 7:30, and we're partnering with Cape Air on that to host it. Another note, our FAA inspection is scheduled for June 9th through the 11th, and in that regard, we had our first round of firefighters go to hot fire training last week, and the next group goes in May. The first group went out to Concord, New Hampshire, and the second, I believe, is going up to Boston. So
What days of the week are those? Do you know anybody know of?
which
The
9th
6th
to
is a
11th.
Saturday, so 7th is Sunday, 8th and 9th is Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
Thank you.
We also held a tenant meeting on April 2nd, went over a number of items. Not the best turnout, but we try to get the word out. We had a few folks participate by phone. As I mentioned earlier, JetBlue will be beginning service May 7th, which is a little bit earlier. It's about a week earlier than last year, and will be New York service on May 7th.
Excuse me, just a question on that email that May sent out to the tenants. I don't know if the other commissioners are aware of that, about the bogus website.
Oh, no. There is a alternative website. It's nantucketairport.net as opposed to nantucketairport.com. And May sent out a notice to our tenants because there are a number of advertisements on there for our tenants. In contacting the tenants, though, they've indicated that they have no knowledge of it and have not been paying them, which is a good thing. But we made them all aware of it, that this is not the official website of Nantucket Memorial Airport.
I don't know that there's any way to track that down or do anything.
And I don't know what we can do, honestly. I don't know if there's any recourse we have there. It does remind me of something else that is becoming a very hot topic in the security side of the house, and that is this, I forget the terminology, but it's what we were a victim of about a month or so back, where they come in and they encrypt your files, and then they try to get ransom from you in bitcoins to get the code back, if you will, to release your files.
So they hack you, basically.
Yes. It's become a very big topic in the security circles. We've received a number of pamphlets and information from FBI and DHS. There have been some law enforcement agencies. There's been fire departments in Massachusetts that have been hacked and had their files locked up. So we're going to be discussing with Skylar what we can do to protect it. I spoke to the chief of police here, and they had some issues in the past, but they have, I think, an additional server, but they do a lot of backup on a very regular basis. So we're going to have to see what we need to do to protect ourselves from that.
Is our website trademarked or copywritten?
I don't believe it is.
Okay. If it were, we'd have an action against somebody
Actually,
posing as us.
there's pretty much an automatic copyright now on material, but there's not a trademark.
Well, I'm just suggesting that there's federal legislation in this area which would protect us if we wanted to go down that road, to knock the .net people out of it.
Nantucket Airport, I don't know that they would do that for us, but because
Well,
I've been through that recently.
You know,
And,
I handled one trademark case in my life, and it was I don't know much about it, but
I mean, we clearly should trademark our logo,
yeah.
which is easy enough to do, but if, you can also get town council to do it, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a fee involved. It's not much money.
$325.
Yeah.
And actually, Noah would probably enjoy doing it. It can be done online pretty easy.
No, you can always write a threatening letter to the .net folks and tell them we're going to sue them.
If you
for
know
a
where to send it.
trademark violation. Send it to the website if it's interactive.
Okay. Any other questions there? We'll move on to statistics. As many of you remember, February was a horrific month with weather. The website for the Weather Underground indicated that 19 of the days in February we had some level of snow. Our statistics kind of reflect some of that, but there's some other interesting notes here. So operations are down 19.5, and year-to-date they're down 8.3. On the employment side, we're down just about 1% month over month, and for the year-to-date we're down 3.23%. The Jet A sales were down 42% for the month of February. Year-to-date, they're up just very slightly. We're still holding a little there. Ironically, the avgas was up 55% for the month, but down 5.39% for year-to-date. The only explanation I can fathom for that right now, without talking to our folks, is that the possibility that Hyannis did not have avgas available during certain days. You may recall that there were a number of days where we were open that Hyannis Airport was not. So it goes to reason, I believe, that they may have been open but not had the availability of avgas, and the airlines were buying it from us. So that's the only explanation I can come up with. The freight was down 1% for the month, and year-to-date, fiscal year-to-date, it's down 3.5%. And noise complaints, we had 2 versus 0 last year at this time. The explanation is in there. One was from a caller that is on the banned list at this time. And that's my report.
One question, Mr. Rafter. A year or so ago, I mentioned the garden club to help clear, pretty up or freshen up, or whatever you want to call it, the FBO building, and I'm seeing how a tree just came up. Is that something that has ever been asked or approached of the garden club?
I have to verify that. I believe there were some discussions, but I will tell you that the town arborist, Dale, and I forget his last name, was out a few days ago, and they actually came out subsequently. They're dressing up the trees. They're going to clean up a lot of our trees. He said, he apologized. He said, I should have been out here earlier, but I'm glad that he's coming out. So we will also reach out to the garden club again, because I know the area you're talking about.
Thank you.
On the noise complaint subject, we're going to take this up at the May meeting in the context of compliance with the change in the rules to talk about how that has been, whether that has worked or not. We couldn't do it without putting it on the agenda at this time, so it'll come up again. Yeah, no hiring report, right?
Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry. Yes. Number of seasonal hirings are taking place. We have the FBO, 3 seasonal hires there. I believe we've approved 2 or 3 of the operations seasonals. And we don't have the paperwork in yet, but the group of, most of the security, all the security guards are coming back, and possibly a seasonal janitor is also coming back. So we're going through that process, and as I said, a lot of folks are going to be in the house. I think there's 6 to 8 of them be in that Thompson house.
Could you give us a complete schedule of the seasonal people next time?
Will do.
Because you should have it pretty well set by then.
Yeah. And also for the next meeting, Don Jacobs would like to come in and give a brief presentation on the compensation study that he completed with the salary ranges and that type of thing. So.
Okay. Any subcommittee reports?
No, Mr. Rafter mentioned the tenant meeting, which I missed most of it, but I did have some comments to put there, and I thought that Jose was very gracious in accepting them and willing to work on some of the issues.
Are there any commissioners' comments? Is there public comment at this time? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, to review executive session minutes as enumerated on the agenda from August 28, 2012 through February 24, 2015 for possible release, and March 10th for review and possible release, and not to return to public session.
So moved.
Second?
How do you vote, Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Flanzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you for coming.
Are they excusing from the executive session
Yes.
to make
Finish
my
scribbling.
presentation? Thank you.
Well, it's just
Oh,
going to be...
God, I haven't seen you in 2 years.
No, it's like I don't remember the meetings.
You're going to have to have a
Thank you.
dedication of the Walter Flaherty ramp light when it's up.
And thank you again for visiting the issue after you closed.
I was thinking too, in addition, there was something else. Well, we
Bye,
certainly